Alpha hubby couldn't tolerate his disabled Omega, so I escaped, but now his words leave me stunned. Kai, a talented artist and Omega, becomes paralyzed after a car crash caused by his alpha husband Ren. Once adored for his energy and charm, Kai now faces Ren's cold distance and society's cruel whispers. Unable to endure the pity, rain streaked down the windshield, the city's neon reflections blurring like watercolors. Kai sat in the passenger seat, hands folded tightly in his lap, staring at the storm outside. Ren's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. His jaw flexed, the same look he wore whenever he was furious but trying not to show it. "Ren," Kai's voice was soft but trembling. "You've been quiet the whole dinner. Did I say something wrong?" Ren didn't answer. The wipers thudded back and forth. The car smelled faintly of cedarwood and mint, Ren's scent, once Kai's comfort, now sharp like smoke. Finally Ren exhaled through his teeth. "You shouldn't have talked about us in front of them." "In front of who?" "My father. My business partners. You embarrassed me, Kai." Kai turned eyes wide. "By saying I'm proud to be your Omega? That's embarrassing now." Ren slammed his hand against the steering wheel. "That's not what I meant." The sudden volume made Kai flinch. His throat tightened. "Then what do you mean, Ren? You don't look at me anymore. You don't touch me. What did I do wrong?" Ren's eyes flickered toward him, guilt, exhaustion, something darker. "You didn't do anything wrong," he muttered, looking back at the road. "It's just complicated." Kai's voice cracked. Complicated shouldn't feel like being unloved. For a moment, silence, heavy and suffocating. Only the rain filled the void between them. Then Kai whispered, "If I vanished tomorrow, would you even notice?" Ren's head snapped toward him. "Don't say that." "Why not?" Kai's lips trembled. "You already act like I'm not here." The tires screeched. Headlights flared through the rain. "Kai!" Ren shouted. And then came the impact. Glass burst like fireworks. The world flipped. Metal screamed. Kai felt his body slam against the door, pain so sharp it took his breath. Then, darkness. When he woke, everything smelled of antiseptic. The ceiling lights buzzed faintly. His head throbbed. His throat was dry. "Ren," he whispered. Ren sat beside the hospital bed, still wearing his torn suit. His hands were bloodied, trembling. He looked up instantly when Kai spoke, eyes red from crying. "Kai, you're awake," he said, voice hoarse. Kai smiled weakly. "You're here." But when he tried to move, his legs didn't respond. "Ren?" His heart began to race. I can't feel my legs." Ren's eyes flickered. He looked away. "Kai, just rest," the doctors said. "What did they say?" Ren's silence said everything. Kai's voice broke. "Say it, Ren." Ren swallowed hard, staring at the wall. "The accident, it damaged your spinal nerves. They're not sure if you'll ever," his voice cracked, "walk again." The room fell silent except for Kai's shallow breathing. He waited for Ren to hold him, to promise him everything would be okay. But Ren didn't move closer. He just sat there, shaking, staring at the floor, as if Kai's broken body was too heavy to face. Kai's tears rolled silently into his pillow. In that sterile, white room, his heart shattered more than his body ever could. Days passed. The doctors came and went. Machines beeped. Flowers wilted. Ren visited every day, but he stopped touching him. He would stand by the window, speaking softly about hospital bills and therapy plans, but never once looked directly into Kai's eyes for long. One night, Kai said quietly, "You're still blaming yourself, aren't you?" Ren's jaw tightened. "Of course I am." "Then why won't you hold me?" Ren's hands twitched. His lips parted, but no words came. Kai smiled bitterly. "You think I've become fragile? Or worse, unlovable?" Ren looked up sharply. "Don't ever say that. Then show me I'm wrong." The silence that followed was answer enough. When the nurse came to change his Ren said softly, "I'll be back tomorrow." Kai nodded. But when the door shut behind him, his whisper broke in the quiet air. "You say that every day, Ren. But the man who comes back isn't mine anymore." Outside, the rain began again, steady, endless, like the night it all fell apart. And Kai knew, deep down, the love that once burned bright between them was beginning to drown. The mansion felt like a museum. Everything was too clean, too still. The scent of Ren's cologne lingered faintly in the air, but he was never there to wear it. Kai sat by the window of their bedroom, the one overlooking the garden he used to tend. Now the roses had overgrown, their petals bruised by rain. Ren had hired caretakers and nurses, but none of them spoke much. They treated Kai gently, too gently, like something that might shatter if touched. When Ren came home late at night, Kai would pretend to be asleep just to listen for the sound of his footsteps. Once those footsteps meant safety. Now they sounded like guilt. Dinner for two but only one speaks. Dinner was always silent. Ren scrolled through his phone, replying to messages from the company. His plate sat untouched. Kai poked at his soup, watching steam curl up and fade into nothing. He cleared his throat. How's work? Ren didn't look up. Fine. Your father still giving you trouble? Same as always. Kai smiled faintly. Maybe I should visit your office sometime? Ren's head snapped up. No. The single word hit like a slap. Kai blinked. Why not? Ren sighed, rubbing his temples. Because people talk. You don't need to put yourself through that. People talk. Kai whispered. About what? About the Omega who can't walk anymore? About the Alpha who wrecked his own mate's life. Ren's expression flickered, pain, anger, shame, before he pushed away from the table. Don't do this tonight, Kai. Do what? Try to talk to my husband? Ren froze. His shoulders stiffened. Then, without another word, he left the room. Kai stared at the untouched soup. The steam had vanished. It was just cold water now, tasteless like the life they'd built. Later that night, Kai wheeled himself into the bathroom. The mirror reflected a face he barely recognized, pale skin, hollow eyes, lips cracked from sleepless nights. His reflection looked more ghost than man. He reached out, tracing the mirror with his fingertip. Who are you? He whispered. Once, Ren used to stand behind him, wrapping his arms around his waist, murmuring sweet things into his neck. Now the space behind him was empty. The echo of what used to be was louder than silence. When Ren was away, the nurses whispered. They didn't mean to be cruel, but pity always sounded cruel to the person being pitied. Poor thing, one said while changing his sheets. Such a beautiful Omega. The Alpha used to adore him. The accident ruined everything, another sighed. He'll never walk again, and Alphas hate weakness. Kai smiled politely when they caught him listening, pretending their words didn't burn. But that night he cried into his pillow until his chest ached. He wasn't angry at them. He was angry at himself, for still loving a man who couldn't look him in the eye. It was nearly midnight when Ren finally came home again. The scent of another Alpha clung faintly to his shirt, not intimacy but proximity. Business dinners, maybe. Or maybe not. Kai didn't ask. He just said, you forgot your ring. Ren froze halfway out of his suit jacket. What? Kai's voice was quiet. You stopped wearing our bond ring. Ren's jaw tightened. It got caught in my shirt sleeve the other day. I didn't notice. Right? Kai smiled, small and broken. You didn't notice. Ren's eyes flickered toward him, guilt flashing for just a second. Then he looked away again. That was when Kai's heart decided, not out of anger but exhaustion. He would leave. Not to hurt Ren, but because staying was killing him more slowly than any injury ever could. Kai lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Moonlight spilled across the sheets, pale and cold. He reached toward Ren's side of the bed, untouched, unwrinkled. A memory flickered, Ren's laughter years ago, the way his hand used to fit perfectly over Kai's chest as they fell asleep. Now that hand was gone. Tears blurred Kai's vision. His voice was a whisper only the dark could hear. I'd rather crawl into a new life alone than wait for a love that already left. Outside, thunder rumbled across the horizon. Inside, Ren slept in his office downstairs, unaware that his Omega had already decided to disappear. The night was quiet, too quiet for a home that once overflowed with laughter. Kai sat by the desk near the window, the faint glow of the lamp brushing his pale face. Outside, rain whispered against the glass as though urging him forward. A blank sheet of paper waited before him. His trembling fingers held the pen, hesitant, reluctant. He started writing slowly, the ink blurring with the wetness of his tears. Ren, you told me once that alphas are meant to protect their mates. But what happens when the alpha becomes the reason their mate needs protection from their own heart? I don't hate you. I don't even blame you. But I can't keep waiting for a version of you that only exists in my memory. I used to wake up every morning thinking I was lucky to love you. Now I wake up wondering if you remember I exist. I'm not leaving to hurt you. I'm leaving because staying would mean losing myself completely. Please don't look for me. Kai. He folded the letter neatly and placed it on Ren's pillow, the side of the bed that had been untouched for weeks. Then he whispered softly into the dark. Goodbye, my alpha. A house that no longer feels like home. The hallway lights were dim, casting long shadows that reached like ghosts along the marble floor. Kai wheeled himself slowly through the corridor, his small suitcase resting on his lap. Every turn of the wheel was heavy, not from pain, but from the weight of memories pressing on his heart. He passed the living room where Ren once pulled him into his lap just to kiss his neck for no reason. He passed the staircase where Ren used to carry him up when his legs grew weak, whispering, "I've got you." Now those same words felt like a dream too sweet to be real. At the door Kai paused. The rain had stopped and the air smelled like wet earth, clean, quiet, alive. The night guard was asleep in his post, the gates slightly ajar. Fate, it seemed, was giving him one small mercy. He wheeled himself through the gates, the sound of gravel under his tires the only goodbye he needed. For the first time in months, there was no echo of Ren's footsteps behind him. No voice calling his name. Only silence, soft, vast, and strangely freeing. The journey begins. The cab driver glanced in the rearview mirror at his lone passenger. "Where to, sir?" Kai hesitated, then whispered, "Anywhere with a sunrise." The man nodded, turning onto the highway. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by the long stretch of sleeping roads and the pale hint of dawn on the horizon. Kai leaned his head against the cold glass. The reflection staring back was no longer just an Omega bound to an Alpha. It was someone learning to exist on his own terms. The city shrank into the distance, a blur of memories, promises, and pain. For the first time, the ache in his chest didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like breathing. The ocean's welcome. Hours later, the cab stopped at a coastal town. The air was salty, warm, and alive with distant waves. Kai paid the driver and thanked him with a soft smile. He found a small inn overlooking the water. Wooden floors, sea-blue curtains, and a kind older woman who helped carry his bag. She didn't look at his wheelchair with pity, only kindness. That small difference meant everything. From his window, the ocean stretched endlessly. The sky was beginning to glow pink and gold. Kai rolled closer, opening the window to let the breeze kiss his face. He closed his eyes and whispered, "I made it." The sound of the waves answered, like a heartbeat that matched his own. Relearning how to be free. In the days that followed, Kai began to rediscover himself in small, beautiful ways. He painted again, sunsets, rain, faceless silhouettes that looked both like him and not like him. He learned how to move through town, how to laugh with strangers at the cafe, how to watch the tide and not think of Ren. Each sunrise was a reminder that he could exist without permission. Each night was quieter but lighter too. Still, sometimes when the wind carried a hint of cedarwood and rain, his heart stuttered, a memory refusing to fade. But he would smile gently and say to the empty air, "Not today. I'm okay now." The sun rises over the past. One morning, as the sun lifted fully above the water, Kai painted it, soft strokes of gold and rose on blue canvas. He thought about the night he left, about Ren asleep in his office, unaware that the love he thought he'd always have was slipping quietly away. Kai's voice was quiet, almost prayer-like. "Maybe one day when he wakes up, he'll understand it wasn't hate that made me go, it was hope." He smiled then, the first real, unguarded smile since the crash. The wind carried the scent of salt and dawn through the open window. And for the first time, Kai's world didn't feel broken. It felt beginning. The attic room that Kai rented was barely wide enough for his wheelchair to turn, but sunlight spilled in through the slanted window, and the sea was visible in the distance. He covered one wall with blank canvases and jars of paint, promising himself he'd fill them again. At first his hands shook. He hadn't touched a brush since before the crash. He started with lines, nothing but streaks of blue and gray. Then shapes appeared, the curve of a wave, the hint of dawn, the outline of a boy looking at the horizon. When the last stroke dried, he realized he'd painted himself. For the first time in months, the tightness in his chest eased. Finding a rhythm. The town woke slowly every morning. Fishermen called to each other near the docks, children ran to school and shopkeepers swept the front of their stores. Kai joined in quietly, rolling to the market to buy fruit and paint thinner. People greeted him with nods and smiles, not the pitying glances he'd grown used to in the city. The grocer once asked, "You paint, right? I've seen the canvases drying on your balcony." Kai laughed softly. "Trying to." The man grinned. "Then you'll fit right in. This town likes dreamers." Those simple words felt like a door opening. A gallery of strangers. A month later, a small art gallery owner named Mrs. Han stopped by his building. "I saw your work through the window," she said. "You paint emotions most people hide." Kai blushed. "They're just moments." "Moments are what make us human," she said gently. "Would you let me display one?" He hesitated, then nodded. When the painting hung in the gallery, A swirl of blues and golds titled, "Still Here." People stopped to stare. Someone murmured, "It feels alive." Kai stood in the corner, overwhelmed. For the first time since the accident, he felt seen for who he was, not what he'd lost. Letters to the sea. Each evening, Kai rolled to the shore and wrote in his sketchbook. Small letters he'd never send. Today the tide came in softer. Maybe forgiveness is like that too, slow but certain. I'm learning to be grateful again. Even for the quiet. If you ever find this, Ren, I hope you're healing too. He never signed the letters. The ocean took them, dissolving the ink into waves. The stranger at the door. It was raining the day the knock came. Kai was cleaning brushes when he heard it, 3 steady taps, hesitant but familiar. He opened the door, expecting Mrs. Han or the grocer. Instead, a tall figure stood drenched in the raincoat, eyes shadowed under the hood. Cedarwood. Rain. That scent he thought he'd left behind. Ren? Kai whispered. Ren pulled back the hood slowly. His hair was longer, eyes rimmed red as if he hadn't slept in weeks. I found your painting, he said, voice trembling. And I couldn't stay away. Kai's fingers tightened on the doorframe. You shouldn't be here. Ren swallowed hard. I know. But please, just let me say this once. Kai's heart pounded. The storm outside roared as if echoing everything unsaid between them. The first words after silence. Inside, Ren stood by the window, dripping rainwater onto the wooden floor. Kai stayed across the room, arms folded, trying to steady his breathing. Ren's voice broke the silence. I looked everywhere. Every morning I woke up and half expected to hear you humming in the kitchen. The house was empty. Kai's eyes softened but his tone stayed steady. You made it empty, Ren? I know. Ren's voice cracked. I couldn't look at you because I hated myself. Every time I saw the chair I saw my failure. And instead of holding you, I ran from my own guilt. Kai closed his eyes. The confession stung more than anger ever could. Ren stepped closer, hesitating at arm's length. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he whispered. I just wanted to see if you were happy. You are, aren't you? Kai met his gaze, sad but sure. For the first time I think I am. The sun set between them. The rain eased into a drizzle. They stood by the window watching the sun sink behind the waves. Ren turned to leave. Then I'll go. You deserve peace. But as he reached for the door, Kai's voice stopped him. You should come back tomorrow. There's something I want to show you. Ren froze then nodded once. I will. When the door closed, Kai looked out at the glowing horizon, the colors bleeding into the sea, red, orange, violet. He whispered to himself, maybe some stories aren't over. Maybe they're just beginning again. Ren came back the next afternoon exactly when the clock struck 2. He looked cleaner, calmer, but his hands still shook when he stepped through the door. Kai had set out 2 mugs of tea. He was painting by the window, brush gliding across the canvas like wind over water. You came, Kai said without turning. I said I would. Kai smiled faintly. That's new for you. Ren winced at the honesty but didn't reply. He stood quietly, watching Kai finish the last stroke, a faint silhouette of a man reaching toward the sun. Is that me? Ren asked softly. Kai's voice was calm. No. It's what I used to see when I thought of you. Ren's throat tightened. And now? Kai set down the brush. Now I'm not sure who you are. Unspoken years. The silence stretched, heavy but not hostile. Ren finally said, when you left I thought I'd be angry. I wasn't. I was terrified. Of being alone? Kai asked. Ren shook his head. Of realizing you were never the problem. I spent months convincing myself I was too damaged to love you right. But the truth is. He took a shaky breath. I was just too proud to admit I needed help. Too proud to say I was scared of the man I became after the accident. Kai looked up slowly. Scared of pitying me? Ren nodded. Yes. I couldn't stand seeing the reminder of what I'd caused. So instead of being strong for you, I made you feel small. I thought if I stayed busy, if I buried it, it would hurt less. But every time I looked at the empty side of the bed, he stopped, voice breaking. It hurt more. Kai's eyes glistened, but his expression stayed composed. And now? Why are you really here? Ren swallowed hard. Because I can't keep breathing if I don't at least tell you the truth. The confession. He stepped forward, carefully, giving Kai space to pull away, but Kai didn't. Ren's voice was quiet, raw. I loved you before the accident. I loved you after too. I just didn't know how to show it when everything in me screamed that I didn't deserve you. Kai stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, You had every chance to try. I know. Ren's voice cracked. And I failed. I failed you when you needed me the most. I told myself I was giving you time to heal, but the truth is, I was giving myself a way to hide. You were in pain and I turned away." His words fell like stones into the quiet room. Then he said the words Kai never thought he'd hear again. "Come home, not because I pity you. Come home because I finally understand what loving you really means." The shaking ground. Kai's heart pounded. His hands trembled on the edge of his chair. "Don't say that," he whispered. "You can't just show up and—" Ren knelt, not caring that the floor was wet with rainwater from his shoes. "I'm not asking you to come back," he said quickly. "I just need you to know. If you tell me to leave right now, I will. But I won't lie again." His eyes were wet, not from pride but from the rawness of truth. Kai looked away, fighting the ache that spread through his chest. "I spent months learning to breathe without you, Ren. Do you know how hard that was?" "I know," Ren whispered. "And I'm sorry. You deserved someone who stayed. I should have stayed." The sincerity in his voice was quiet but unflinching, so unlike the alpha who once hid behind silence. Kai felt tears prick his eyes. "You're saying all the right things now. But the scars don't vanish because of words." "I don't expect them to," Ren said. "I just want to be someone who helps them fade instead of reopening them." The fragile piece. The rain began again, soft and steady. Ren stood and looked toward the window. "I'll find a place nearby," he said finally. "I won't bother you. I just want to see you live the life you built. Even if I'm not part of it." Kai blinked, startled. "You'd really stay here? Just like that?" Ren smiled sadly. "You're not the only one learning to start over." He reached for his coat, pausing at the door. "If you ever want to talk, I'll be at the cafe by the docks. Same time every day." Kai nodded, unable to speak. When the door closed, the sound of his footsteps faded into the storm. Kai turned back to the canvas, the half-finished painting of a man reaching toward the sun. He picked up the brush, hesitated, then added another figure beside it. Smaller, imperfect but standing close. The words that stayed. That night, as the sea whispered outside, Kai read the words Ren had left behind in a small note on the table. "Even if you never forgive me, I'm still proud of the man you became. Ren." Kai pressed the note to his chest, eyes closing. The ache didn't vanish, but it softened, turning into something almost gentle. He whispered into the quiet. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet. But thank you for coming back anyway." Outside the storm broke. And for the first time since the night of the accident, the air felt light again. A week passed after Ren's return. The days blurred into a mix of cloudy skies and restless thoughts. Kai told himself he was fine. He had his art, his small rented home, and the quiet peace he fought so hard to build. But every morning he caught himself glancing toward the sea, wondering if Ren was sitting in that cafe he'd mentioned. He always was. From the window, Kai could see him sometimes, sitting with a cup of black coffee, sketching something in a worn notebook. He never came closer. Never called. He just waited. And somehow that quiet waiting spoke louder than all his words. A familiar scent. One afternoon, Kai was delivering new paintings to the gallery when the rain began unexpectedly. He tried to wheel himself faster, but the downpour drenched him within seconds. Then, a jacket landed over his shoulders. That scent again, sandalwood and rain. Ren stood there, soaked and breathless. "Couldn't watch you get caught in the storm again," he said, half smiling. Kai hesitated, the corners of his lips twitching despite himself. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," Ren said softly, "but I couldn't stay away." He helped cover the paintings, his fingers brushing Kai's for a second. Gentle, cautious, asking permission without words. Kai didn't pull away. Dinner and distance. That evening, Ren knocked on his door again, holding a paper bag that smelled faintly of takeout ramen. "Peace offering," he said with an awkward smile. Kai arched a brow. "You think food fixes everything?" Ren shrugged. "It's a start." They ate together in silence. The only sound was the quiet slurp of noodles and rain tapping on the window. Halfway through, Kai muttered, "You used to hate the quiet." Ren's gaze softened. "I used to hate myself." Kai froze, chopsticks midair. Ren continued, voice trembling. "I kept thinking if I ignored what I'd done, it wouldn't crush me. But silence has a way of making guilt louder. Being here, near you, it hurts. But it's the kind of hurt I deserve." Kai's throat tightened. "You don't get to decide that, Ren." Ren nodded. "I know. I'm just hoping you'll let me try to do something right this time." The painting of forgiveness. Days turned into weeks. Ren never overstepped. He fixed the porch steps quietly, brought groceries sometimes, always asked before entering. Kai tried to stay indifferent, but slowly the walls began to crack. One afternoon Ren found him painting by the shore. "What are you working on?" he asked. Kai glanced at the canvas. "A promise." It showed two figures under a gray sky, one kneeling, the other sitting in a chair, their hands almost touching. Between them, a golden string glowed faintly, unbroken despite the storm. Ren's breath caught. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Kai smiled faintly. "It's about two people who hurt each other. But instead of letting go, they learned to start again." Ren's voice was barely audible. "Is that us?" Kai looked at him, eyes calm but warm. "Maybe." The heart's tremor. That night Kai couldn't sleep. The ocean wind howled, the roof creaked, and the memory of Ren's trembling hands wouldn't leave his mind. He stared at his phone for hours. Finally he typed a message. "Come over. Just to talk." Ren arrived minutes later, drenched again. He didn't speak, just stood there, unsure if this was a dream. Kai gestured to the sofa. "Sit." "I'm not sure why I called you." Ren sat quietly waiting. After a long silence, Kai whispered, "You hurt me so badly I didn't think I could ever breathe again. But when you came back it felt like, maybe the air wasn't so heavy anymore." Ren swallowed. "Kai. I'm not ready to forgive you," Kai continued, voice trembling. "But I also don't hate you anymore. And I don't know what that means." Ren smiled softly. "It means you're healing. And maybe so am I. A fragile beginning." Kai leaned back, exhaustion and emotion mixing until tears blurred his vision. Ren hesitated, then gently took his hand. "Tell me when to stop," he murmured. Kai didn't. They sat like that for a long time, two broken halves finally daring to exist in the same space again. No grand declarations, no promises of forever, just a quiet, trembling peace. Outside, the storm slowly faded, replaced by the rhythmic hum of the tide. Kai whispered, barely audible, "Tomorrow, will you bring coffee instead of ramen?" Ren laughed softly, a sound that warmed the room like sunlight. "Anything you want." The gallery was buzzing with soft chatter, the scent of fresh paint and polished wood filling the air. Kai's hands trembled slightly as he wheeled to the center of the room. Today was his first major solo exhibition. The walls were adorned with his paintings. Waves, sunsets, faceless figures, moments captured in emotion rather than detail. But at the far end of the gallery one canvas stood alone. Covered. Ren waited near the doorway, coat draped over his arm. His eyes softened as they met Kai's. Kai's heart skipped. He had painted this moment hundreds of times in his mind, but the reality still took his breath away. Unveiling the heart. Kai wheeled to the covered painting. He paused, fingers trembling. "This is not just a painting," he murmured to the crowd. "It's a story." With a deep breath he pulled the cover away. Two figures stood beneath a stormy sky, one seated, the other kneeling, hands just touching. Between them, a golden thread glowed faintly, tying them together despite distance, mistakes, and pain. The crowd murmured. Someone whispered, "It feels alive." Kai's eyes met Ren's. "It's about forgiveness. About two people who hurt each other but found a way to start again." Ren swallowed, voice quiet but full of awe. "It's beautiful, just like you." The first step. After the exhibition, the gallery emptied except for a few staff and Ren. Kai wheeled closer to the window, looking out at the glowing city lights reflecting on the water. Ren stepped beside him. "May I?" he asked softly, gesturing to sit beside him. Kai nodded. Silence stretched between them, but it was no longer heavy. It was full of possibility, of breaths shared and walls falling slowly. "I don't know what comes next," Kai admitted. "Neither do I," Ren said, voice low. "But I do know this. I want to walk beside you every step in whatever way you let me." Kai turned, eyes glistening. "Even if I'm the one who has to move slower?" Ren smiled gently. "Even then. We'll find a rhythm together." The first touch in months. Ren reached for Kai's hand, hesitating, letting him pull away if needed. Kai didn't. Their fingers intertwined naturally, like they were meant to fit together all along. The world outside the window was quiet, painted in twilight hues. The storm that had raged in their hearts months ago had faded, leaving soft light in its place. "I never want to leave your side again," Ren whispered. Kai leaned slightly toward him. "Then don't. Stay." Ren pressed his forehead against Kai's, breath mingling. "I promise. Always. The sunrise promise." Morning came, and Kai wheeled to the small balcony overlooking the ocean. Ren joined him, hands still in his, watching the sun lift above the horizon. The golden light reflected on the waves, turning the water into molten fire. Kai's heart swelled. Do you see that? Ren nodded. It's beautiful. Just like the new beginning we've been given. Kai whispered, I think, maybe this is what hope feels like. Ren squeezed his hand. Then we'll keep it. Together. The ocean's hum, the warm glow of sunrise, the soft touch of hands entwined, for the first time in months, Kai felt whole. No words were needed. Their hearts spoke for them in quiet, unbroken rhythm. The promise? Kai and Ren's story ends not with perfection, but with healing, love, and a promise to face life together stronger than before.